Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me in the locker room on this Cinco de Mayo. I'm Alan Locher. As the World Turns alum, Todd Rotondi is joining me today to look back at his time in Oakdale. He arrived in February of 2000 to play the character of Bryant Montgomery, the son of Craig and Sierra, played by Hunt Block and Mary Beth Evans. We all watched and we all cried as Bryant died in a fiery car crash in October of 2001. Today, Todd is the co-founder of Wellbuilt Company, a vertically integrated real estate development, construction, and asset management company based in Portland, Maine. On the acting front, he has been patiently waiting for the right story before returning to the film business. In 2022, he was urged by a friend to read The Longest Mile, an unbelievable yet true story about Boston's Methadone Mile. Todd has partnered up with director Johnny Hickey to give the film the realism and edge it deserves, as Hickey has a niche for the dark collateral damage of drug use in his films. After reading it, Todd signed on to executive produce, fund it, and he will make his return to acting in it. But his greatest role to date is father to his 12-year-old son, George. I am so excited to welcome Todd Rotondi to the locker room. Hello, my friend.
How you doing, Alan? Nice to see you.
You too. It's been a long time. Long time.
It seems like a blip, though. It's such a life, right? It seems like a minute, right?
Yeah, it goes fast. I mean, we'll get to George, but I'm sure you see it more so in that. But I wanted to go back to, your childhood and growing up with your two brothers, Matt and Andrew, and your sister, Beth. What was your childhood like?
We had a wonderful childhood. We had amazing parents. My dad was very loving. Mom was very loving. Grew up in a beautiful little neighborhood outside of Boston, sort of a bedroom community of Boston. And we had a really nice childhood, sort of like, I don't want to say the white picket fence reality, but it was close to it. It seemed like it was joyous. It seemed pretty filled with joy and love. And but my father unexpectedly sort of passed away back in 1984. So that was a huge turning point in my life.
How old were you?
I was 11 at the time.
Oh, I am so sorry. That is too young to lose a parent. I've lost both a little later in life, but 11 is heartbreaking.
It was really hard. And my mother had contracted multiple sclerosis. I don't know where it fell into that, but very close behind, I think, from his death. So it was hard. We grew up with my mom being in a wheelchair when I was in maybe early high school. And it was hard, because we sort of all retreated into our own little realities. And I don't want to say we weren't close, but it was hard. We all fighting to try to figure out sort of not only why this happened or what life's about. So from a very early age, I was sort of struggling with the ideas of what was going on in life,
Absolutely. And I would say in that era, we didn't talk about mental health or having the right tools to help you grieve. Grief is a process that hits, you're talking, your two brothers and your sister and mom, it hits everybody differently. And that's a really, really hard thing, I think, at any age, no matter, it is at a young age, but it is every age. I mean, just losing someone is a very difficult experience that there's no tools unless somebody takes you to mental health or, shares those experiences with you.
Yeah.
And I think you even talking about it today will help somebody, like just sharing that.
Yeah, I never had any help. My mother tried to get us to go to some therapists, but I didn't want to have it at the time. I kind of wish I did have a therapist. I sort of grew up bringing up myself, really. We all kind of did. I mean, I really brought up myself, taught myself sort of a lot of things about sex, about drugs, about anything that came my way. It was all me teaching myself. And I feel like I've grown tremendously as a result of all that stuff. And I feel like
I would believe that 150%.
But we've all finally come back together again after all these years and gotten pretty close again, which is really wonderful. And I think when you go through that stuff at a young age and you get old and you get a little bit more mature and a little wiser, I hope, you kind of come back together and appreciate each other a lot more than you did. And the whole mental health thing, by the way, I don't think a lot of people, especially who are in the media or on TV, really, I mean, they're talking about it more now. Like, I've struggled with this over the years, and I never talked about it. I just kept it inside and bottled it up. And I still deal with depression and still deal with, you know, um, drugs and alcohol once in a while. No drugs anymore, but, alcohol's been a thing of my story, and it's been difficult. And um, I've struggled with it over the years, but now I'm more open about it and I talk to people about it. And that's been very helpful for me.
Well, I'm really, thank you for sharing that. I am planning to do a show at the end of the month about mental health. And I didn't even realize, I don't think I realized when I planned it, but it is Mental Health Awareness Month. But it is something we do need to talk about. It is so upsetting to me to see the depths of despair that so many people, who we do love and cherish, are going through these, difficulties and not talking about it, because we all have stories to share.
Yes. And it's to be vulnerable. For me, the thing I loved about acting that drew me to acting originally was I was allowed to be vulnerable, and I was allowed to express myself in a way that I was able to get out these things that were bottled up over the years in a very safe environment, and I was able to let it rip. And for me, that was total freedom. But then to talk about my actual real feelings of what was really going on in my life, and talk about the death of my father and the struggle growing up in my environment. Not that it was a total struggle, but it was. It was very hard to talk about those real things. And I feel like there's like a stigma attached to that over the years. And I'm hoping that gets lifted, because I know I have a lot of friends, dear friends of mine, that are very successful and have a lot going on that sort of struggle with this, and they share it with me privately maybe, but they would never come out in the open with it. And I think it's unfortunate, because I think that we can really help each other. And in the end of my life, I feel like if I can't be of assistance to help other people in this life, I don't know what the point was, really.
Amen to that. You graduated from Emerson, broadcast journalism. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I originally I took a postgraduate year at Deerfield Academy, which was a wonderful year for me to kind of prep, to get in. I didn't get into my early choice, which was Bowdoin College. And then I ended up going to Bates College early, got some money to play football there. I was actually a football player at Bates College, and a much bigger version of myself, like 60 pounds heavier than you saw me on As the World Turns. I was a bit of a monster back then. I started working out, I was like in 8th grade. And that was another way for me to sort of like,
sort of express.
Yeah, and get out my things from my father. Mm-hmm. And I think it helped me a lot. And, but went to Bates, and then just academically, didn't find anything at Bates that really, motivated. I kind of wanted to get into acting or something like that, but they didn't have anything. So I remember going down and speaking to someone, and I ended up getting into the theory and study of rhetoric.
Oh, wow. I'm fascinated by that, Todd.
Which was totally intense. But I wanted to like be on stage, I thought, and like maybe be in front of camera. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I transferred, went down to Washington and Lee University. They had some incredible TV journalism. I got into TV journalism, fell in love with it, worked at WDBJ7, ABC, I think it was, in Roanoke, Virginia, as an intern in the spring semester, and did a bunch of reporting stuff and loved it. Then I went back to Emerson, transferred, got in, finished. And then my first job out of there was working for Inside Edition in New York. I did that for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
I was an investigative reporter for them, which was fascinating. It was wonderful. I knew the investigative reporter really well. He was from my hometown. Matt Mahara, he was incredible.
Oh, that's so funny. I've become very friendly through this show with Lisa Guerrero, who's their chief investigative reporter today.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Well, you can ask her if she knows Matt. I'm sure she does.
I will. That's so funny.
He won many awards. He was an amazing journalist. He's retired now, but.
Oh, wow. Is it true you studied abroad for a semester and toured 7 countries?
I did that in my junior year in Emerson. I did semester at sea program through
Wow.
University of Pittsburgh. So applied. It was amazing. We did Japan, China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, India, Egypt, Israel, Turkey, Greece, and then Morocco, and then back to America.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. It was, and I was on the quest, right? I told you at an early age, I was always trying to figure out what is life about? Why did my dad die? Who am I? What the hell is going on? Where's my purpose? Why am I here? Where's my father? So for me, going to see all these different religions and learn about their different cultures and learn about the religions on the boat, and then go to these countries and then be able to experience it firsthand was one of the best experiences I ever had. I would highly recommend it to anybody that's trying to figure out like what is going on here.
I have to tell you, I don't have a lot of regrets. One regret is not studying abroad. It is truly, like, I don't have many. That is one. How did you said you early on thought about acting. How did you actually decide to finally do it?
I think it was my 6th grade year. My father just died. And then one of my good friends, Matt Fantasia at the time, came up to me and said, hey, Todd, you should come and audition for the local musical theater play. And I'm like, what? Nah, musical theater? I didn't know what that was. Okay. Everyone's doing it. He's like, Pat's doing it. Rob's doing it. I'm like, oh, sure, I'll do it, I guess. So I went down and auditioned for the play Cinderella, and really connected to the director, Kathy Alexander. She was a huge influence in my life, and I ended up getting cast as the lead, which was wild, and played the prince, and that was my first sort of experience as an actor. And I just remember feeling like this freedom or escape from dealing with the realities of like losing my dad. Like, it was the first time I got on stage to be able to express myself in a way and be creative, and just, I don't know, I felt a little free. I'm like, wow, this is wonderful, this feeling I get. That was my first experience. Loved it. Did it again in 8th grade, did little something. And then I let it go, because I was a jock in high school, freshman, sophomore, junior year at Winchester High School. And then my senior year, I was the captain of the football team, and the person who was running the school play, they were doing a Little Abner. I don't know if you remember Little
Abner. I do. In my high school theater program, I think we did Little Abner.
So she comes up to me and she's like, hey, Todd, she goes, we cannot find this lead role. Would you have any interest in coming and auditioning for Little Abner? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, will you just come down and try it? And I said, I'll come down and sing some, whatever. Yeah, I'll come down. And I was singing in the octet at the time. And so I went down and auditioned, and she's like, Todd, you got it. Like, if you want this, I would love to work with you. So I did it. It was so much fun, Alan. That was one of the best roles I've ever played. It was so me. And I just had so much.
I don't remember it at all, but I remember it was a high school thing. That's so funny.
And then go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then it sort of, after that, I went to college, and I didn't do anything for a while. All the way through college, I didn't do anything up until after I graduated. And then it got ignited again. And then I was like, you know what? I think I want to act. And I went to move to LA, got my car, said goodbye to my mom. And I just started driving to LA, and I got as far as Las Vegas. And I mean, crazy story, but I made some bad decisions, and I'd never been to Las Vegas before. And we stayed there for a while, my buddy and I that was driving with me, and we ended up losing some money. And then I fell in love with some woman at a piano bar, literally, who was like 35. I was like 20, 21.
This story sounds vaguely familiar.
And I literally, Alan, I got in my car. She flew back to northern part of New York where she was from. I can't think of the name. And I drove all the way back to be with her. Yeah. So there goes my acting career. I was like, well, so much for LA. I was so close, by the way. So I went back to be with her. to find out that she was engaged to this guy that owned a karate studio in upstate New York. So she was a bit of a interesting experience. So
wow. Well, take me back to the audition for Bryant Montgomery. What do you remember?
Oh man, what a wonderful experience that was. It sort of came quick. I was with Gene Frankel Theater, studying with this guy who became a huge mentor in my life. And he was sort of like a Yoda. I don't know if you know him, but he was just an incredible coach. And I worked with him only for about 3 or 4 months. And he said, Todd, you have this interesting talent. I think you're ready. I want you to get in front of managers and agents. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So he got me in this class, this audition technique class. And I remember doing the class, and then 2 people approached me right after the audition. And it was Nancy Curtis, I think it was, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Nancy Curtis was an agent.
Yeah, that name sounds familiar.
She called me. She goes, Todd, I'd love to talk to you like tomorrow. I was like, okay. So I went to her office. She's like, listen, love to sign you. If you want to sign, we have an audition like literally tomorrow for you. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, sign. Didn't even look at the contract. So I went into another world the next day, and I met Paul something, the head of
Paul Roush.
Paul Roush.
Wow.
So I auditioned for this character, right? And he says to me, smoking a cigar. And
Yes, that's Paul Roush. Now I know you know who you're talking about. You mentioned the cigar.
And he says, Todd, he goes, I think you need to take some the Boston accent. We got to work on that. I was like, oh, okay. I could care less. I didn't even know that was going on at that time. I was like, okay, sure. Anything else? And he's like, well, we'll be in touch with you. So I leave. Apparently, Mickey Dwyer Dobbin.
Yeah. Perfect.
She got hold of the tape.
Yeah.
Someone said to her at one of those places, said, you have to see this kid. So I guess she had seen it and was like, oh my God, there's this role on As the World Turns that he's kind of perfect for. Sends it over to As the World Turns, and then I get a call literally the next day. She goes, Todd, I don't think it's, they're not interested over there, but you have another audition tomorrow at As the World Turns. So
wow.
She sends me the sides, Alan, like the character breakdown. And I was like, wow, sounds like me.
Here, let's take a look at you. Hold on.
You. Of course I love you.
You as a friend?
You mean the world to me, and you always will.
I wanted to be more than that. Thought I was.
I wanted that too. It's just, as hard as we tried, something was always missing.
Yeah. I never took that final step. That could have made all the difference in the world.
I mean,
but I guess now we'll never know.
Look
I wanted
at
to
how
give myself to you. I did, but
young
couldn't.
you
That
are.
illusion.
The 2 of you. Look how young. Well, I wanted to surprise you. Kim O'Nash, who played Jennifer Munson.
What is this?
I'm like sitting here in shock that first and foremost, the fact that you remember half those names, really impressive. But wow, like
Kim, what's up?
years.
Hi, Kim. Hi. Kim has to, like you, she has a young son, so she has to go soon to pick him up.
Yes, leave them at school. So,
so I wanted to bring you 2 back together.
I love it. How old's your son, Kim?
He's 8. That's my munchkin. Of course, he's a redhead, just like me.
Oh my! Where are you living?
I'm in North Carolina, in Raleigh. I love it down here. I spent, 15 years in Los Angeles and was just got to a point I was just done. Had my boy and wanted to get him to a place with more trees than people. So,
and this is Todd's little guy, George.
Oh, he's so cute. How old?
He's 12 now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's a little man now. It's coming to you soon. Unfortunately, in the next 3 or 4 years, you're gonna be like, whoa.
It is crazy that, here we are talking to both of you as, parents.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, Kim, I said to Alan, I said, of all the success I've ever had in real estate or whatever I did in acting, I said, it pales into comparison. And you know this, to being a father to this kid. There's nothing else in this lifetime that will ever touch it.
Truly, truly. I mean, the things that you do for yourself when you're younger to further your career, especially when you're in a creative field and all those things you have to do, you get to a point when you're older where everything's kind of in service of them and their future and where they're going to end up. And it feels a lot better than doing it for yourself.
It's so true. I feel like I'm on one of those TV shows, like a Jerry Springer show, where you like all of a sudden, like my family member that I haven't talked to in 40 years. I wanted to
I don't know how long it's been.
It is a long time.
Oh my
Please,
God.
I know, Todd, you definitely worked a lot more, but we just lost Liz Hubbard. Would you share any memories you have of working with Liz?
I would just say that, I was young. This is my first experience. I had gone in, and I remember like going in the car with Hunt Block in the morning, and I'm like, I spent 4 hours the night before studying my script, like at Starbucks and Astor Place, like freaking out, thinking about the intentions behind everything and like the moments of why this happened and like all this stuff. And I'm stressed out, and I get in the car and Hunt's like having a coffee, like looking at a script, and I'm like, and it's like, and I'm like, you just learning these now? And he's like, yeah, you'll get there. He's like, it's fine, And then I would go on set with Liz, and like, it all had to get thrown out because Liz was so in the moment that she wouldn't even like stick to script sometimes. And I'd be like, what is she even, this doesn't even make, I don't even know how to come in. When do I come in now? Do I sing? She's like a wild child. She reminds me of like a bed of wildflowers, just like got like spread forever. She's just like, she was the best moments of my life during that time were like just going and playing with her. She was so fun. She was so out of her mind that you wouldn't even know what she would give you. She would give you something and just like, but it kept you in the moment. It kept you there. And I loved her. I had just such fond memories of her. She was very motherly and very like nurturing and very like, just a wonderful, wonderful soul. I had such fond memories of her.
Anything for you, Kim?
Oh gosh, of course you'd ask. It's been a long time. I didn't have as many scenes with Liz. If I must say, I think the person that had the effect on me, like they did on Todd, was Benji.
Benji, yeah. So yeah, please share. I mean, Benji. I mean, you had Colleen and Benji, one on each side. I mean, talk about both of them.
Benji was like a second father to me. I mean, I still remember back in the day when we were on in the old studio before we moved out to Brooklyn, and we were allowed to smoke in our dressing rooms. And Benji and Tom would sit there, and Michael Park would all sit there and just chain smoke and play poker. And being a 17-year-old in on that, I was like, this is so much fun. They were just, yeah, Benji was a great guy. I mean, he gave me so much advice. He gave me so much life advice. I mean, he was someone that made an impact on every scene. I mean, I think I wasn't even acting when I was working with Benji. It was, we were so close. And Colleen was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, Colleen had some great roles. And I still remember the barbecue days where she had the burns. Mm-hmm. And that poor woman spent so much time in makeup, and she gave me so much advice as well. And it was just, it's kind of cool when you have these folks that come in and they are surrogate parents to you in a way, and they get to kind of build you in ways that your own parents never could, because they have life experiences that your own parents never got to experience. So it was kind of a cool age to be on a soap with so many professionals and so many incredible actors, and just soak it all in and learn from them and their experiences and just become better for it, and as an actor and as a person.
And you two, what do you remember about, trying to make Bryant and Jennifer work?
All I remember is our first fan event after I cheated on you with
Billy, with Hunter Garner. Billy.
Yes, Billy. It was rough, gentlemen. It was not an easy fan event. But I mean, gosh, our star-crossed lovers that never quite made it for years. I feel really bad
I thought we were going to go the distance. I thought we would have been there forever.
Mm.
All of a sudden, fiery car crash comes my way.
A fiery car crash came your way. That
had nothing to do with Billy showing up as I'm like falling apart, you know. I mean, it was all about
it
timing.
devastated the fans, you know. I mean, because you were a, you know, Bryant is the son of Craig and Sierra, you know, one of the most popular couples, you know, and losing, you know, it does drive story. I mean, Hunt's performance at your bedside. Were you laying there when he broke down, Todd? Do you remember? Because I was watching some of it, but I wasn't sure if you were there.
I was there when Mary Beth Evans, my mom, was doing something in the bedside. That was always difficult because I was actually attracted to her, so that was always a weird when they cast her, I was like, oh God, please don't say this is
a bit of an Oedipus complex. Okay,
this is going to be a whole different storyline for As the World Turns.
Yeah, I've had people on who've talked about like being in love with their, you know, mom or grandmother or you know, older. Well, I had gotten a note from Hunt, who he didn't know you were going to be here, Kim, but he said, Todd, when he heard you were a parent, he's a dad, exclamation point. That is so beautiful to hear. He was great to work with and be around, and his departure was so haunting. I hope he's doing well. Tell him Jess Clinton is coaching a pro team in Oakland. Don't think they have a name yet. He may know that already.
Oh my goodness. So good, man. I love these little surprises you've added in. It's so wonderful. Kim, are we going to talk about the new soap that we're doing, the nighttime thing, or are we later?
I put that in the past.
What's that?
Oh, well, we were, no, okay. A whole different show, is it not? Could you imagine? Yeah, we started this nighttime series, the soap series.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I have to laugh because the very last episode of As the World Turns aired the day before my wedding. And I was just, it's the only reason, it was just weird for me. I was just like, I can't believe it's going off the air. I mean, that was just one of those shows that, I mean, we were on during the 50th anniversary, and the fact that it started off as a radio show and all those years and all those decades, and even now to this day, 20 years later, I still run into people who are like, oh my God, I watched you and my grandmother's with my mom. And it's just, it's kind of cool to have had like people remember a show that be part of something that was, it affected so many generations.
It really did. And it still does. I mean, the fact that I'm able to do this show and that people, you know, that you are still a part of their family, you know, deep down. Kim, you didn't see at the beginning, but Todd and I were talking a little bit about mental health, and I happened to see your post on LinkedIn. You know, just because we were talking about how important it is to share stories to help others. What prompted your post?
Honestly, having a bit of a rough week last week myself. I mean, no one is anxiety, depression. I think a lot of people really suffer from that and don't realize it. They're afraid to say something about it. They're afraid to show weakness. They're afraid to show that they're not as strong as they feel that they should be, that other people are expecting from them. And I think a lot of people take other people's expectations and try to live up to them versus just living up to their own just so they can be happy in themselves. Had just one of those weeks where, you know, anxiety was one of those things where you can have a huge, massive attack and then it goes away, or it can just snowball like sometimes life can. And just got to a point where I was like, okay, I just need to take a step back and take care of myself, and was of course able to do that. I'm lucky I have people in my life who, you know, I can talk to about that sort of thing, but no one wants it. No one wants that to be part of their life. No one wants to give in to that sort of thing. Myself, I mean, gosh, Todd, I'm sure you're the same way. We've been out in the world for a very long time at this point, taking care of ourselves and now other little people. So you don't really want to give into it because you feel that you're better than it. But there's nothing wrong with saying, it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to take a breather and figure out what you need to do to take care of yourself. I mean, I think one of the things that really had an impact on me, especially when it comes to mental health, was when I became a parent. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, you cannot take care of your children if you are not taking care of yourself. Right?
Beautiful. Beautiful. And you know, I asked it because I really do believe, you know, all of this conversations help others. People watching right now, you might have just shared that tidbit that could help them at some point. So thanks for answering that.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that put off this perfect image, especially in the industry. You know, there's no wrinkles, there's no scars, you know, boobs are still perky at 40 something. You know, there's all these things that make it seem perfection, but you don't know what's going on behind the mask. So it's, yeah.
Well, Kim, before we let you go, what are you doing today?
Oh gosh, I have been for the last 17 years working in staffing for healthcare. I get to find people jobs for a living every day. I develop solutions in the financial and compliance side of healthcare. So I'm the VP of Client Relations at Norwood. I was the second employee. We're now up to over 40 internally and have a lot of people employed in the field. So I really love what I do. I get to actually improve healthcare on a daily basis. So it's
and
awesome.
Give people jobs.
I know, that's kind of awesome.
That is awesome. I would like to take a picture of the three of us. May I?
Yes.
Yeah. Smile, everybody. 1, 2, and 3. Kim, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Todd. It's been so good to see you, I must admit. And thank you for the blast from the past, that scene. Holy heck. A little older than I was expecting, but that's okay.
It was so good to see you as well.
You too. You too. Good luck with your little man. Enjoy the heck out of him. You've got a few years till college. They go fast, I hear. So
he already told me yesterday, he goes, Dad, he goes, I want to get older. I go, no, you don't, buddy. Enjoy this time right now, please. He's like, I want to get older. I'm like, oh no. It goes back so quick.
There's time for adult things later on. Enjoy being a kid. Time for
plenty of time.
And bud pies and cupcakes and all that fun stuff.
Do you think he might follow in your footsteps, Kim?
Mine?
Of the acting world?
I'm not going to lie. He's adorable and I should probably force him into it, but I'm a better mom than that. So right now he's all about either wanting to be a landscaper or a paleontologist. So
he's got the world at his feet.
We're just going to hope that develops over the next few years.
Great to see you, Kim. You stay well.
You have a great day. Thanks so much for having me. And again, so great to see you, Todd. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Big hugs.
Oh,
I had to do that.
Oh, man. That was so wonderful. I can't even tell you. You know, because first of all, thank God, you know, everything was good. Sometimes you might say, I might not have liked someone, for example. You would have said something kind of crazy. Then all of a sudden you put them on. I'm like, oh, now I'm on Jerry Springer, you know? Thank God that didn't happen. Not that I was not that I was
but you two were so young. You two were so young. And, you know, the fans, you know, I loved hearing her talk about going to that event after she cheated on you. The character cheated on you.
I know.
Fans were, you know.
Oh man, that was it. By the way, this sun coming in. Are we good here?
Yeah, it's blocking you a little. If you move a little.
Can I shut that screen? Should I shut this really quick? Is that all right?
Try it.
There's a lot of light coming in. Is that better? Probably dark now.
No, that's good.
That's better.
That's good. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Thank God you didn't have Mary Beth Evans. I hope that's not next because maybe we get her on for the next show.
I love that though. You're like, oh my God, I love her.
I can remember moments where, like, at the beginning, we would be doing a scene, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, this is not supposed to happen." Like, I wanted to, like, I thought I was supposed to kiss her, like, do it. You know, it's like, I can't do this right now.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What was it like working? You know, you talked about the car rides with Hunt, but talk about working, you know, opposite him.
Well, he was just a force in himself, you know, and it was just, I kind of felt that same way, where he was like this, like, I just felt almost like safe when I would work in his space, because he had such a command over what he did. And he was so good at what he did that I just kind of felt like this, like, safety. And for me as a young actor, like, I needed that, because there was certain environments where I was in with other actors on the set where I didn't feel that way. And that was hard for me, because I was trying to get my footing and trying to get my bearings. And I just felt like with him, I could trust him. And he was sort of like, he would point me in directions, and I could kind of feel like he was there and he was present. He rooted me. And I love that about him. I don't know. I just felt safe with him. I felt the same way with Lucinda. Yeah, Hunt was just great. It was a great experience working with him.
When you look back on that, the entire time, was it a great experience? You can be, yeah, don't.
Listen, I would be totally honest. It was a really good experience. I have a hard time with authority. I think that's why I started my own business, and that's why I now finally getting back in the business. I'm producing and executive producing. Because I have a problem with authority. I always have my whole life since I was young. So I have a problem with authority. I feel like there was a lot of egoic stuff going on here and there, which is natural, I think, in that business, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had an issue with some ego stuff going on, and I think I combated it a lot. Where in hindsight, I look back and I think, maybe I should have just step back a little bit and not let it bother me. But I was young and I didn't know. And
you're not. Let me enlighten you, which I'm sure I don't need to do. You're not the only one who has been in that position on a soap or any other performance-based, entity. It happens. I mean, authority can be an issue for people. And ego.
Ego's hard. That's why I strive now to, like, create environments, especially in the film now that I'm working on and stuff in the future. I don't want to say it's ego free. I like healthy egos as long as the egos aren't like trying to, like, infringe on other people's well-being, or like trying to, I think if we can all work together, right? Like Shakespeare said, there's a place in means for every person alive. If we can all work together in a way in which it allows the other person to be who they fully are, then you kind of have this beautiful working together of these things that come together where everyone's just kind of being themselves and is allowed to be fully who they are. Like, I don't want to work in any art environment ever again the rest of my life where it's not that case, where I can't allow an actress or an actor sitting there with me to be fully who they are. I might be able to tour guide them and say, hey, maybe we should think about this, but I want them to fully be themselves. And it's definitely hard to find that. I think that's why I kind of chose to go down this independent route recently. And I always said to myself, like, I will never get back in that business ever again if I can't not only sort of control the environment in a sense of, like, bringing in the right people that I feel like have this chemistry together. But I think there was a lot of trauma involved and I think there is a lot of trauma involved in this business with egoic personalities. I'll leave it at that. But you asked me originally, I went way off the cuff, but the experience in general, Alan, was totally wonderful. I mean, it was wonderful. It was wonderful for my family. It was wonderful for me. I enjoyed so much working with so many actors on that show. And it got me to a level where I could kind of go out there in the world and follow my heart and follow my dream. And for that, I feel grateful. I feel forever grateful for that. But there was hard parts of it. And I was young. I didn't have anyone by my side, Alan, telling me, like, right. I had no one. It was all me. I just didn't have. My mother was very proud, and she watched it and loved. She was home in a wheelchair at the time. Like, oh, somebody, she was so excited to watch me on TV, and for
I'm
me to
sure.
be able to give that to her
Yeah.
was such a great gift. But it was really just
It's
me.
a hard business for, I think, almost any age. And then to be, you left your family, you're in New York City, you're alone and you're on this popular show and playing a major role.
Yeah.
It's all. Well, talk about being proud. Talk about the company you've built, Wellbuilt. How did that come about?
It came about by, in between acting gigs, when I was in New York, and I was always a little bit handy. My dad owned a contracting company in Boston, and I was just trying to figure a way to, instead of bartending or waiting or something like that in between gigs, to kind of do something more productive. And Ellen, I used to take around a little handy bag of tools, and I would go around apartments and work. I worked for a really high end sort of handyman company in New York, and we were like highly rated it was Yelp back in the day. That's how old I am now, man.
Yeah.
And I would go around and just do these little small projects for all these like really high end clients. And then I was working at the Ritz Carlton, the penthouse of the Ritz, for this woman, Danya Bomer. Her husband was this big hedge fund guy. I didn't know at the time, but I was doing these little small things, and she had like a $46 million apartment, so I would go there and fix a toilet or fix like some molding or like caulk some things, so whatever it was, right? And she sat me down one day and she said, Todd, we've really enjoyed working with you. Can you guys do something on a bigger scale? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, what are you thinking? And she's like, well, we're thinking of renovating the apartment. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. And I'm like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff, She's like, we really like you and trust you. And okay, great. We're going to put you in touch with our designer, this girl, Celery Kemble, who's like this famous designer from Palm Beach, I guess. I didn't know who she was. I'm going to put you in touch with Celery. We'd love to hire you to do the work. You guys take it from here. And I'm like, okay. So I leave and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I have no idea like what I do. So I called Celery. She's like, oh yeah, she told me about you. Let's meet up and talk about it. That was my first project down in New York.
In New York, let alone. I mean, that's a big getting a project like that in New York.
I didn't even have a subcontractor at the time. I didn't even know what it was. I thought I had to do everything myself. I didn't even know what was going on. So that sort of got us on the map. Like I met a guy in the city, this kid, Mitch Kidd, this Australian guy that was working in the same building at the Ritz. And he saw me one day and he's like, hey, mate, he's like, are you a electrician? I'm like, no, I'm a kind of a general, I guess. That we connected, had lunch actually downtown. And I said, I just got this job offer up above. I don't really know what's going on. Do you want to join forces? And he's like, sure. That's how the company started, myself and this guy, Mitch. He had some subs. He had an electrician and a plumber. He had a painter. And I think he had an HVAC guy. And that's how the company started. And we
And how many years are you now?
Oh man, that was 2009 or 8. I think we did that. Yeah. Yeah. And then we did it pretty well. Actually, we did a really nice job. And then we got some magazines, and then all of a sudden we were doing really high-end like renovations of bathrooms and kitchens in New York. And then that turned into a bunch of other stuff, and then me going back to Boston once in a while, and then starting to do some bigger stuff in Boston, like, whole new buildings, knocking down houses and doing ground up construction. And then I did that for 3 or 4 years in Winchester, Massachusetts. And then I went there into a city outside of Boston in Somerville and started doing a lot of conversions of condominiums. And then it went from there. I mean, I just did a huge renovation for the owner of the New York Islanders, this guy, Dewey Shea. I just did a final walkthrough actually this morning here on the island I live on. I've been there for a year. We did a $2 million renovation of his kitchen, a bathroom, and 2 bedrooms. I mean, $2 million.
Good for you. I mean,
Yeah.
amazing tenacity and drive to, you know, build something well built.
You know, when I sort of didn't have a choice, I had to figure out something. You know, I was auditioning and nothing was really happening at the time. And I figured, you know, what can I do that can sort of subsidize this and get me to a place where I can actually afford to do what I really want to do ultimately, which is I really want to get back into acting, obviously. But I want to do it on my own accord, and I want to be able to work in projects that are meaningful. And that's all I really ever wanted to really do is I want to do something meaningful. You know, I want to leave the world a better place if I can. And I also want to leave a good message for my kid. I want George to look at films I do in the future and that was weird. Interesting. So I want him to like look back at.
Talk about The Longest Mile and your connection to, you know, somebody encouraged you to read it.
Somebody, my brother, my little pest brother.
Oh, was it your brother? I didn't remember that it was your brother. But you know, because you said you struggled, you know, with alcohol and stuff, and I mean it's a different addiction, but you know.
Yeah, so Andrew's been trying to get me to read his scripts for a long time. Back in 2009, 10, when I was on the soap, he went to New York Film Academy, and he's been like ever since then, like writing and doing incredible, like a little bit avant-garde, crazy stuff early, but like really like creative. Andrew's very, very creative, and it's developed over the years, and it's like a fine wine. I hate to say it, but like I never like really, you don't really look where you are. Like see my brother, like I always was like discarded him a little bit, you know, like Andrew, one day, whatever.
Put him off.
He just kept going and going and going. It was like Energizer Bunny on steroids. I mean, he never would stop, Alan. And finally, I'm going to cut through a lot of stuff, but over the years, you know, I read some things and I liked some things, but I didn't find the right role. And I've gotten to a point in my life where I just want to play the right role. I don't want to have the ego about it. If I'm not right for the role, I'd rather step aside and have another actor play that if it's going to embody the character better than I can do it. So Andrew finally wrote me like a couple months ago, and he's like, Todd, he's like, I really want you to read this. It's really good. He goes, I have this director from LA that's interested. He wants to fly out here. And I'm like, okay, who's this guy? You know, thinking, who's this guy? You know, I was like, send me this guy's IMDb. I want to see who he is, you know? So he sends it to me. And I was like, wow, you know, this guy seems legitimate. He's done a couple films that have gotten like, you know, a lot of praise and like he's done well. And I'm like, okay, is he seriously interested or not? I mean, he goes, yeah, he wants to fly out and meet me and I want you to be there. And I was like, okay, I'll be there. I'll meet him. So I went out to Boston and we met at this little place. He was late. I was like a typical LA guy, you know, a little late for the meeting. And then he comes in and he's like this, you know, cool street guy from Charlestown. He used to be, you know, one of the townies down there. He walks in and I didn't know what to think at first. And we met up. It was a little, you know, awkward at first. And then all of a sudden we started connecting. And then like he saw me, I think he saw me as like this ex-soap guy. He didn't know what to think about me, you know. I think he had these preconceived notions like, oh God, what am I dealing with here? Typical LA guy, you know. I was thinking the same thing. Deeply connected. He says, I love your brother's script. I want this to be my next film. I'd love you to be part of it. And I was like, well, I want to be part of it. And after meeting Johnny, I was like, wow, this guy really believes in this. And I said, Andrew, let me read through it again, just kind of make sure this is something I want to do. So I read through it again. I'm like, wow, it's beautiful. And I said, I'll do it. I'll be the executive producer. And I wasn't going to be an actor at the time. I said, I don't know if I even want to do it right now. And I said, I'll executive produce it. I'll fund it for you. And that's how it started. And then we went on the journey and it was crazy. You know, Tom Sizemore, who has passed, is a good friend of Johnny's, the director. And Tom attached to the film 3 days before he had a brain aneurysm, which is totally crazy. And Tom is like, my brother Andrew like loved Tom as an actor. So to have him attached to it was huge. So that was very exciting and obviously very traumatic for us to kind of go through that experience, and especially for Johnny, because Johnny's actually very close to him. So we took a little bit of a breather, and now actually Johnny's flying out, I think, tonight to go to his memorial this weekend. So
tell us what the film is about.
So it's The Longest Mile. It's like this dark crime drama about the Methadone Mile in Boston, which is like this infamous place in Boston. And it follows the story of this girl, Missy, who is the lead character. And she is a recovering addict herself. And she basically drives these other addicts around to all these clinics in Boston. And her brother is in prison, and her brother finally gets out of prison. Now she's recovering, doing pretty well. And it's sort of like him coming out, living with her, now brings her into this like world and this complete havoc. You know, she goes back out again, experiences drug abuse again, starts having overdoses, you know, sex trafficking starts happening. She experiences, you know, murder starts going on. I mean, all this stuff just crumbles in her life. But the thing I love about Johnny and Andrew is that, you know, Johnny does these like really violent, gritty films, but his message in the end is always really deeply positive, because this kid's been through everything. I mean, this kid was thrown off a 60-foot, 80-foot cliff and was paralyzed and was hallucinating apparently, but seeing this guy next to him in bed. I mean, the doctor said, "You'll never walk again."
Huh.
And he had this guy next to him telling him, "You got to follow God. You got to live. You got to be truthful, and you got to do your thing, and you're going to walk again," or something like this. And he ended up getting out of that and walking again. So Johnny is just a force, and he ended up coming out of that and just like doing these really positive films that are trying to like help kids get off drugs. I mean, he started this nonprofit called Fight. I think it's Film Intervening Getting High Team, I think it is, Fight. But he's just a positive force, and he goes around and speaks to kids and tries to help kids get off drugs, and he's just an amazing force. So that whole thing happened, and then finally recently I've been kind of casting a lot of the supporting roles, which has actually been fascinating. I've actually really enjoyed the casting side of things. Working with some incredible actors right now, and they're sending off a lot of tapes next week. But there's also a really incredibly talented actor from Boston, a comedy guy that's very successful that we're in talks with, that's also good friends with Johnny. So I think he wants to play the lead, the father, which is very exciting for us. So we're probably about a week away from maybe signing him on.
That's awesome. Keep me posted. We'll have to do another one of these.
Yeah, I definitely will, for sure.
Well, let's spend a little time talking about your favorite role. George. Talk about George following in your footsteps, your love of music.
You know, music, I would say, if I was good at it, it's what I would have done, you know. I followed it for a while. I had a little, not success at all, but I actually went out and followed my heart and did a lot of music in New York and Boston. I was in a band for 7-8 years after the soap, and I loved it. But my son has this like just natural ability that I never had. It's way, way beyond me. It's a natural ability that I've never experienced before. Seeing like, he's like, the way he can sing harmonies and just come up with lyrics and just like he loves rapping. He's a little, skinny white kid who's 12 and 12 in a few months now, and he's got this beautiful way about him of the beautiful thing, Alan, is that he just loves it. The first session, he was a little reluctant. Actually, Johnny, the director, is the one that kind of set this all up. He listened to a few sessions of George at the house, and he said, "Wow, he's really beautiful. He's got a beautiful voice." He goes, let me connect him with this woman in Boston, this Phoenix Down Studios, this girl, Allie Duty, good friend of mine, and I think they would connect. And I was like, okay, I don't know. He's kind of like, I don't even know if he wants to do this or not. And so I told George, and George was like, okay, Dad, like, you know, just don't force me into do something I don't want to do. And I was like, buddy, I would never, ever, as your father, I would never do that. I said, listen, just go in and meet her. If you don't like her, you never have to see her ever again. I promise you right now. He goes, okay, all right, Dad. Reluctantly goes in. I go in the studio for 45 minutes. I leave him alone. And I come back in and I'm like hearing the music and I'm hearing him singing. I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. And I walk in and he's all cool in front of me. And I said, well, let's go outside. So I leave and I said, so what did you think? I was so scared even to say, I don't want to go back. And he goes, Dad, that was awesome. It was awesome? He goes, yeah, it was. She totally gets me. And I'm like, yes. My heart is full. To see your child like be happy at 12, to like be doing something that he loves in his heart. It just made me so happy, Alan. I
love that. Well, let's play a little of this song called Hard for Me.
I've been feeling lost, can't seem to find my way. Got me feeling like I'm stuck up in a maze. Trying to get to the top, trying to win the race. But it's hard to see the light when you're stuck in the rain. Trying to be the best, but forget the fame. I'm racking up, I'ma be the best in the game. But it's over now, we run it up. My bro calling me up, we headed for that should be lame, man. That should be lame, ayy. We on the road, yeah, we heading to the game, man. I'm dropping 40, yeah, I'm balling like I'm James, yeah. I'm changing numbers now, I started to be raining. Working hard, I know it's finna pay, yeah. Every day we have that card, so we play, yeah. I'm rapping all day, yeah. I'm rapping all day, yeah.
I mean, that is amazing. I love his voice.
He's beautiful and he's talented and he just loves it, you know. And the producers over there, they produce like, they work with like Little TJ and Little Baby, who I don't really know, but
I have no clue.
They've worked with Snoop. I mean, they're like one of the biggest studios to record that kind of music, that genre. And George loves Little TJ, and his producer used to tour with her, this girl Allie. And Allie just believes in him, and she's like, I mean, it's hard to hear this as a parent, but she was like, you know, we've never seen this kind of talent as a 12-year-old kid. And
having people who believe in you is, you know, the first step, right?
Yeah, and that's what's wonderful about her, is like she's such a good mentor for him, and I just feel like we're in really good hands. And I really appreciate Johnny for like caring enough to. He's got a young kid too, and I think he realizes the importance of that relationship, right? And like knows that this business can be a little hairy, especially the rap business. So to have him in good hands with her, I mean, Allie, I trust with my life, and Johnny, I trust with my life. So I don't know, it's just a blessing to have him be doing something that he really loves. And there's no greater gift as a parent than to see your kid be happy.
Couldn't agree more. Being a dad, what has it meant?
Honestly, I think it saved my life, Alan. I think that I was on a trajectory of, you know, after the soap and after a couple of films that I did, I was in LA and I was a little bit lost, and George unexpectedly came into the world. But like I said before, I think it was the greatest gift in my life. And I think it saved me from, I mean, honestly, the rate I was going at that time, I probably would have died of a drug overdose or something. It was single-handedly in this entire life, if I could think of anything, if I died tomorrow, the greatest gift of this life was experiencing that, just being a father, learning how to get outside of myself for the first time, get out of my own ego, and learn to love another person. You know, I think the greatest gift I believe in this life is to learn to love and be loved in return, you know, and then give that love back. It's really hard. It's hard to be vulnerable, you know. So my son has taught me how to truly, I think, love for the first time in my life. And that to me is the greatest of all gifts, you know? So I'm just so proud of him, and you know, being able to step outside of my own ego and allow him to like pursue this music, which is something I loved, but actually to be able to step back and say, I want this for you because I love you. Like that, I mean,
That is the way to end a show, Todd. My friend, so good to see you. So good to see, really. Continued success. And seriously, keep me posted on the film.
I definitely, when it comes out, let's do this again.
Absolutely. You have a great weekend. I hope you get some George time. And thanks for spending the hour.
All right, Alan, take care, my friend.
You too. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. Thank you to Todd Rotondi for spending the hour and Kim Onash for surprising us. Join me on Wednesday, May 10th, when actor Sean Hayden joins me live to talk about Stage Combat, a mental health story. It's a new groundbreaking podcast serial series about his experiences having a mental health crisis at one of the most powerful theaters in the country, the Goodspeed Opera House in East Haddam, Connecticut. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So keep that in mind. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. And I hope if you like today's episode, you click the like button. And remember, you can stream The Locker Room on your favorite audio platform. Have a great weekend. And as always, everybody, please, please, please stay safe.